Hey everyone, it's Anna. Thanks so much for visiting my channel. I recently shared this card in my completed handmade card stash share where I shared my Christmas cards, and I had some requests to show how I made this card, so I thought I would do that. So it uses the deer frame die from Impression Obsession, and it also uses the pine sprig die set from Impression Obsession as well. The deer frame looks like this on the website when you go to order it. And it's just really a beautiful die. I'll show you the die as well. I actually have it die cut through some paper right now. And then the pine sprig die looks like this. It has a little pine cone. And it also comes with, now I'm not sure if it comes with one pine cone or two, because I think I might have two sets here. But it comes with these little pine sprig dies as well. So super cute. Love this. This is also one of my favorite dies, absolute favorite dies. But again, I'm not sure if it comes with one pine cone or two, so you might want to check. Don't be surprised if it's just one, since I think I have two sets there. But anyway, let me go ahead and show you how this is done. So what I'm going to be using is, I have the deer die cut out of just some white cardstock. I would have preferred to use cream, but for some reason I grabbed white. And here's what it looks like when you die cut the frame itself. So it is a solid frame die. You can see all the little pokey holes to kind of get all the individual pieces out. So the outside edge of my cardstock here is just scrap. And the die itself actually cuts a really nice, beautiful frame here inside. So you're just going to want to carefully pop this die out of the die itself, pop the paper out of the die, and I do so just by kind of folding the back corner a little bit, and then everything comes out in one piece. So you can see here's the die. So really, really beautiful. All right. I'm also going to put down a piece of scrap paper because I don't want to get ink all over my workspace. So I just die cut these extras. I'm just going to set those aside. So you really only have to work with one die cut. And what I'm going to do is pop these pieces out like a puzzle. And you don't want to lose any. But of course, if you do, it's simple enough to just die cut another piece. So you're even going to pop out the little tiny ones here. That one and this one. There we go. So I'm left with just the deer and then all of his little negative bits, but you want to keep those, so don't lose those. So now what I'm going to do, hopefully you can see that okay, white on white. You'll be able to see it here shortly. So what I'm going to use is, you can use distress inks. I also like to use the inks from Impression Obsession. They're a hybrid ink. So just kind of use what you have. Use the colors that you like. You're going to want to try various different colors. So let's see, this one is a tea dye color. And then I like using the blending brushes. It doesn't, to my knowledge, really matter what company of blending brush you use. I have several different ones. They all seem to work pretty much the same. And you're just going to very carefully ink this. And you're just going to do it really lightly at first, just to kind of get a little bit of definition going on your die cut shape. And this is why I would have preferred to start with a cream-based cardstock, but we'll go with this. It's the same idea whether you're using white or cream. Just your inking colors will be a little different. So just with a very light hand, which is why I like the blending brushes, because they don't drag too much on the paper. Just going to give that a nice base coat of color. And you can see that I wasn't, it wasn't very even. It's not perfectly the same color everywhere. So So now what I'm going to do, I think I'm going to change colors here. I want to use a Vintage Photo, which is a little bit richer color. And just kind of ink this up. The other thing I like about the blending brushes is it kind of catches the ink a little bit on the edges, more so than inwards on the cut design. And so it allows you to get a little bit of definition there without really having to try all that hard. I'm going to leave that antler area a little bit lighter. I'm going to go in a few more times here on this side here just to kind of darken up these antlers. So if you can, kind of think of a light source of where your light might be catching on the animal. So I'm kind of catching it up in the upper left here. So anything on the lower right side of that, I'm going to make a little bit darker. Okay. So now I think that looks pretty good. And I'm going to continue adding ink, but I don't want to get too carried away just yet. So let me go ahead and show this to you again. So you can see my die cut deer has a really dark edge on this side. What's creating the contrast is when I ink up the negative space, I'm leaving this edge of the negative space lighter in color. And so that's providing a really nice contrast between the die cut shape and the background. So here as well, you can see where I've created the really dark antler. I've left a lighter edge on the background shape. And then here as well, I have a light colored antler against the darker area of the background. And same here, I have the light color of the deer next to the dark color of the background. So kind of keep that in mind as you're working. So as I continue to add more ink to my deer, I need to remember that this part of my negative space needs to remain light in color. And I'll show you a couple tricks to doing that. So there, that looks pretty good. I think that's really beautiful, actually. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually adhere this down to a piece of paper so that I have kind of like a base. I don't know if you've ever worked with puzzles and you've got like a little tray that you can work them into, but I'm going to glue this down to a separate piece of cardstock so it has a little base there. All right, so I've cut a piece of paper that's just smaller than the frame itself. So you can see the frame of the die is outside the edge of the paper. So I'm just going to use this as kind of a little backer to give my die cut something to sit on. And it's not going to show from the back because it's actually slightly smaller than the die itself. So it's just kind of like a grippy spot. Going to put a little adhesive. You don't want to go crazy. You just want to, you know, have a spot for this to catch. You don't want to go crazy. You don't want your glue to get outside your die cut shape at all. And I'm going to set this down on here. I've got glue and ink and stuff all over me. All right. Keep in mind it's not tacked down everywhere. I might have to add a little adhesive as I go. If I notice this is going to pick up, I'm sure. Okay. There we go. So now, if you look at my card again, I actually have some stamping on the image itself, but not on any of the background spaces. So what I need to do is at this time, I need to stamp on my die cut design. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this cover a card. So it's a really large stamp. This one is called Beauty Text, and it's from Impression Obsession. And I'm just going to with the ink color of my choice here, I think I'm going to use this one here. This one's called Chocolate. from Impression Obsession. I'm just going to add ink to the stamp. It doesn't have to be perfect. You're not looking for a perfect impression anyway. And I'm going to flip this over and just kind of give my die cut shape a good quick press. And like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. If you're missing some spots, that's just great. So see there, now I've got stamped design on the die cut shape. Beautiful. Set that aside to clean. All right, so now what I need to do is I need to fill in my puzzle pieces, but I need to know what color to add to them for ink blending. So what I'm going to do is kind of eyeball this and say, okay, so this is my lighter area of the deer. Remember, this is my dark side, this is my light side. I need to make this portion of my die cut shape a lot darker than the deer. So I'm going to add quite a bit of ink here. And again, you got to kind of be careful with these little pieces that, I'm going to use a different brush, that stick out. I'm going to use a darker ink. I'm going to use that chocolate ink. Oops. Here. Yeah. That's going to be beautiful. So I'm trying to catch all the majority of the ink on this right side of this die cut shape. And then I can kind of hold it up and see if I like the contrast. Like that. I think I'd like it a little darker. And I need to make sure that I get the other side of the die cut shape too. Get some really good ink in here. Let's try that. So just kind of set that down inside there and see if you like the way that it looks. I think I'm actually going to add even more. And while this is adhered to here as well, you can actually go in and add more color to your die cut shape as well. So if you decide you want it a little bit darker on the low light side of your shape, you can continue to add ink. See, like that looks really beautiful. I'm going to try adding some ground espresso, I think. This is a distress ink, and I think this might be a nice addition. It's a really dark brown. I think it's important to kind of build upon the colors that you use, just to give it a little more interest and make it truly unique, you know. This will be probably the only card I'll be able to make exactly like this because of the, you know, the combination of the colors that I use, how heavy-handed I am when I'm doing my inking. And you can even you could even use black as well, just to add a little more darkness. So I think that looks really beautiful. I think I'm going to add a little bit of this dark color over here as well. All right. So, yes, see, starting to take shape now. I'm also going to find this little piece in here that goes in the deer itself. It's like the shadow of its neck. I'm going to find that little piece in my stash here. And I'm going to make sure I get that one really nice and dark as well. Oh, come on. Okay, I like that. So I'm actually going to put a little bit of adhesive down inside this little crescent area. And see why I have this paper down here is now I have something to adhere these shapes to. I'm going to use a little jewel picker. This is a little tool that I absolutely love. It's got like a tacky end here. It has two different sized ends. And they're slightly tacky and they can pick up little pieces of paper. And I'm just going to set that right down inside there. And now that first piece is down in place. I'm going to actually set this larger piece down in place as well. All right, so it looks like I need to get some down in this area, there. And I think to get it down inside that little area, I'm actually going to put it on the back side of the die. All right, now I'm just going to fit this down in here like a big giant puzzle piece. Press that down in place. Beautiful. So now we have our second piece inlaid. That look nice. I think I'm going to darken up this antler here. I'm going to use a smaller blending brush and get some of this ground espresso in here. Just to kind of give it a little more contrast when we get that next piece set down in place. Okay, so now I'm going to ink up this larger piece here. So this one's going to fit down inside here like this. So I've got the dark side of the deer, so I need to make this my lighter, lighter inked side for contrast. So I'm going to pop him over there and add some dark ink to this side. And add just a little bit to this side over here. And then I'm going to pull in my vintage photo again. Warm this up. That ground espresso is kind of a cool brown. It doesn't have any red in it. Okay, now I'm going to be able to set this piece down in. See the contrast there? Oh, it's really beautiful. Oops. I'm going to add some glue down in here. And if you want to darken up this edge any at all, you've got to do it before you inlay this piece. Add some glue to this piece here and to here. And set this piece down in just like a big puzzle. Oops. Need to be more careful. And make sure your edges line up nice so you're not overlapping your pieces at all. So see, you're just really taking apart the die cut, inking it up, and then setting it back in place. So now I have a couple of small areas here that I need to do. This one here, I think I'm going to darken up this antler just a little bit more before I get that piece set in place. And now when I ink up these pieces, I know I need to keep them fairly light. So I'm going to go to the vintage photo and ink up this one. This one's going to fit down in here. So I'm going to go ahead and place that one. I noticed though that I have some of this, what's this one called? Ground Espresso, yeah, over here. And I want to make sure to carry that color just a little bit over on this side of the antler as well, just so it kind of looks like a, you know, the same background. So now I've added a little bit of that Ground Espresso there. I'm going to add some glue in here. Pick up this piece and set it down inside there. All right, so I'm going to do this one next. So it looks like I can do the same type of a blending. It looks like it's that piece there. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the vintage photo. But I don't mind this process. So I'm just going to stick this piece down inside here. Just like that. Looks like I've got that one there to do. And I need to keep it on the light side as well. Actually, I might actually make it darker since that antler is so light. I'm going to start with the Ground Espresso and really get some good color in there. And add just a bit of vintage photo for some warmth. Okay. I'm going to use my little picker up tool. Go. And I almost wish I had darkened this antler side here. Or if I could pop that out of there yet. No. Next time. I'll have to be more aware that I need to darken up that background piece next to that antler. All right, so now I'm going to do this little piece here and here. And it looks like I have a big piece there as well. So looking at that, I think they need to be fairly dark. So I'm going to start with the Ground Espresso and add a little bit of vintage photo for warmth on all of these pieces. And this last little piece is flipped over, so I gotta get you face up. All right, so go ahead and insert some glue here. And pick up those little pieces. And one more. He goes this way. Too heavy for that end. Oops. There we go. So that's how I built the deer for the card. You can kind of compare the two. Yeah, so you can see here where I did the dark antler. I kind of kept that light. Here I got kind of two midtones going next to each other. But I really love how this dark side here fits in with the light of the background. And I really love this blend here. Gorgeous. So that is how that is done. If you want to, you can actually color the pine cones as well. So when you die cut the pine cones, they actually have these little holes in the back side of the die. Looks like that piece is not quite glued down. So the pine cones have these little holes in the back side of the die, and all you do is you take just right through the back side of the die, you take a little blending brush and push some brown ink through the holes. And then not only will your die be embossed, because the holes allow a little bit of relief for that paper when it's die cut, but it also acts as a stencil. I'm going to go ahead and poke these out. So there you can see I have some polka dotted pine cones, and if I don't want the contrast quite so dark, I can also go back in after I've popped them out of the die and ink the full piece up a little bit, so it's not quite such a stark contrast. Just like that. And I just think those are the cutest little pine cones ever. And they're so easy to make. So when I adhere them down to my projects, I use a little bit of hot glue, and then that allows the die to sit up a little bit and give it some dimension instead of gluing it flat down on the cardstock. So why don't we just go ahead and finish this up then, since I have these made now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the little cluster like I have down here at the bottom. Oh, my hot glue gun's not hot. I'm just going to use white glue. Normally I would use hot glue, but my glue gun's not on. I'm just going to add a little bit of glue here. I've got some of these little pine boughs die cut as well. I think I will they're fairly bright, so now I have glue all over my fingers. You'll have to excuse my mess. So I'll add just a little bit of ink here, and that'll kind of knock back the brightness. But they'll still be green. There we go. A little more natural looking. All right, so now that I've got a big glob of glue here on my project, I'll go ahead and tuck these pine cones in. And like I said, normally I would have hot glue instead. So these are not going to stay up like I would like. Just kind of tuck those in. And when you use hot glue, it dries really quick as well, so you don't have to fiddle around too much. And then I do have a button here, so I will go ahead and add some twine to my button. So I have a little 4-hole button here and my little hemp twine. I always thread my buttons on my paper craft projects. It's one of my crafty pet peeves, if there could ever be one, is unthreaded buttons. And I love this hemp twine because it actually has a little bit of body to it, so you can kind of fiddle around with the ends of it and work with them a little bit, and then they'll go the direction that you want them to go. And then I just give these a little bit of a trim because those were a bit long. And I think I'll add just a smidge more glue to the back of this button here. Again, I would be normally using hot glue, and I'm going to add that button right there in place. Now this is still wet, but once it dries down, it'll be beautiful. So there. I hope this was really helpful for you. I think it's such a fun technique. And really encourage you to give it a try. If you have other frame dies in this type of a fashion as well, give it a try. I think it's just a really beautiful technique. So thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much also for requesting a tutorial on this technique. I really appreciated it and enjoyed providing it for you. So that's all I have for you. Thank you again so much for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.